The Abaddon shook under the relentless impact of alien fire, her armor plating glowing white-hot as gravitational blasts raked her hull. Flames danced across the fractured mid-deck. Crewmen screamed as bulkheads collapsed, sucked into space before emergency seals slammed shut. Beyond the bridge's reinforced viewports, the planet Venus burned, its surface writhing beneath the distorted light of battle. Hundreds of vessels filled the void, but only one human warship remained. Admiral John Hayden stood unmoving at the center of the bridge. His dark uniform, torn at the shoulder, clung to him like a second skin soaked in sweat and smoke. His eyes locked on the holographic display projecting the battlefield. Red markers outnumbered blue by 10-1. Flanking him stood Sophia, the ship's synthetic operations interface and integrated AI. An incorporeal presence, her voice a calm thread amid chaos. Multiple breaches on deck 9 through 13. Structural integrity at 42%, Sophia reported. Enemy formation converging on central axis. Estimated time to full critical breach, 6 minutes. Casualty report, Hayden said, his voice low, unshaken. Confirmed losses, 2,241. Estimated wounded, 800. Evacuation protocols have been exhausted. Around him, officers moved with mechanical urgency. Lieutenant Paxton barked commands through a comlink as sparks rained from a ruptured conduit. Navigator Strand gripped the helm, blood trailing from a wound over his brow. But no one looked to Hayden for hope. They looked to him for orders, and orders he gave. Show me fleet disposition, full spread. The hologram zoomed out, revealing the entire combat theater. The combined forces of the Dravari Confederation, the Yilthan Ascendancy, and the Oryx Dominion were closing in. The Dravari ships, jagged and blade-shaped, pierced through the remains of the third human vanguard. The Yilthan, immense jellyfish-like cruisers, pulsed with bioluminescent energy as they fired ionized tendrils of plasma through fractured lines. The Oryx, reptilian brutes housed in massive cruciform carriers, launched wave after wave of gravity munitions. Sophia, odds of survival if we hold our position. 0.8%, Admiral, she said without hesitation. Outside, another human vessel, UHS Glory, was split in two by a focused beam from a Yilthan dreadnought. The remnants spiraled silently into the gravity well of Venus. Sophia, Hayden said, eyes still fixed on the display. Prepare for the Omega Spear. The spear is a terminal maneuver. Initiation will drain all core power. Noted, he replied. We're going to break their command spine. For a brief second, the bridge held still. Even the injured paused. The Omega Spear, an energy transfer maneuver so destructive it had only ever been simulated, converted all auxiliary systems into a single forward cannon blast, weaponizing the ship's entire mass. It had no contingency, no escape plan. Mark targets, Hayden said. 3 flagships blinked into view. Sanctum Rain, Void Chorus, and Gar Makul. They were command vessels, buried behind their respective formations. Each was the pride of its faction, symbols of the unity that had crushed Earth's defenses. Hayden turned to Sophia. Can you clear us a path? Firing solution prepared, she said. Recommend sacrifice of lateral batteries. Concentrated burst in 10-second intervals. Do it! A tremor ran through the bridge as the Abaddon surged forward. Flanking alien ships scrambled, some retreating in confusion. Twin bursts of white-blue energy erupted from the ship's sides, carving holes into the wall of encroaching frigates. Abaddon cut through the debris, wounded but accelerating. She didn't move like a battleship. She moved like a blade. All remaining torpedoes, launch, Hayden ordered. Hammer their escorts. As the Abaddon pierced into the heart of the battlefield, a wall of alien fire rose to meet her. One of the ship's forward cannons detonated mid-charge, killing the entire gun crew. No one flinched. They kept moving. We're in range, Sophia said. Fire the Omega Spear. The deck lights dimmed. Energy diverted. Every system outside core life support, funneled into a single pulse. Hayden placed one hand on the railing. A sound like the universe tearing itself apart thundered through the hull as the forward array unleashed a concentrated burst of plasma-threaded dark matter. The sanctum rain vanished in a single white flash. The void chorus shattered under a wave of concussive force, its tendrils flailing before freezing and collapsing inward. The Gar McCool launched countermeasures, but they disintegrated mid-air. The beam carved clean through its central axis. 3 flagships. 3 explosions. 30 seconds. Silence followed. On the bridge of the Abaddon, the displays flickered. Emergency power cycled on. The crew gasped as the lights returned, dim and red. "Targets destroyed," Sophia reported. "Power reserves depleted." Hayden exhaled slowly. "Any sign of retreat?" "Negative. Enemy formations regrouping. Estimated time to re-engagement, 90 seconds. Additional fleets converging on this position." "No backup," Lieutenant Paxton muttered. "No reinforcements. No home left." Hayden didn't respond. He already knew. "Sophia," he said, "initiate Phantom exit protocol." Sophia paused, as if considering. Randomized deep space trajectory selected. Destination unknown. Jump will consume all remaining core reserves. "Execute," Hayden said. "Now." "Understood." The hum of the FTL drive rose to a roar. The stars outside the viewport bent, twisted, and vanished. The Abaddon vanished from the system as the surviving alien fleets surged into the space she had just vacated. Inside the ship, Hayden turned to the crew, those who remained conscious. "This ship and its crew are now ghosts," he said, voice sharp through the comms. "No more wars. No more orders. We survived long enough to matter. Now, we endure." He crossed the bridge, stepping over debris, to the command cryopod interface. "Sophia, initiate full crew cryostasis. Prioritize command staff. Leave no one conscious but you." "All biological life forms will be preserved," she confirmed. "Systems entering standby. Cryogenic chambers primed." Hayden removed his command insignia and placed it on the main console. Then, he stepped into the pod. As the seal hissed shut and mist filled the chamber, he gave one final command. "Preserve us. Protect the Abaddon. Await new orders. Or the end." The pod locked. Around him, hundreds of others did the same. Crew members, technicians, Marines, all suspended in cold silence. The ship's core dimmed. Engines faded. Lights went out, one by one, until only Sophia remained. Orbiting a dead star, in the emptiest sector of a galaxy at war, the last weapon of humanity shut its eyes. "Mission suspended," Sophia said quietly to no one. Centuries later, in the forgotten reaches of deep space, the starless black of an abandoned system stretched cold and silent. Orbiting the remnants of a dead sun, its nuclear heart collapsed into a dull, unlit husk, drifted the research cruiser Viralis, its matte gray hull absorbing what little radiation remained. "Captain, we've got something," said Chief Analyst Vokar, his 4-clawed hand hovering over the trembling interface. The console flickered, struggling to stabilize the incoming data. Captain Thorek Valdran stepped forward, his angular frame towering over the cluster of scientists. A member of the Korg Thule, an aquatic hybrid species with bioluminescent scales and layered gill ridges that fluttered subtly with each breath, he narrowed his primary set of eyes at the projection. The faint pulse was almost lost in the storm of stellar interference, but it was there. "Location?" he asked, voice deep and resonant. 72,000 kelkins toward the collapsed binary cluster, Vokar replied. "Origin, orbit of a black star system. No registered objects in current navigational charts." The bridge of the Viralis, a sleek research cruiser coated in adaptive light-absorbing panels, pulsed with gentle cyan from its low-intensity lighting. Designed for long-duration scientific observation missions, its crew was small, composed entirely of Korg Thule intellectual castes, scientists, scholars, and xeno-archivists. "No relay signature?" Thorek pressed. Vokar's secondary hands manipulated the interface, filtering layers of interference. No, the signal is analog, directional, repeating every 61 seconds. Human in origin. The room fell into silence. Every tentacle, crest, and mandible in the room froze. The word human had long faded into academic reference and political caution. A race obliterated during the expansion wars, known for their irrational defiance and overwhelming tactical aggression. Impossible, muttered researcher Malthus, one of the junior analysts. No human transmissions have been recorded for at least 4 centuries. Thorek didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned toward the viewport, where the skeletal glow of the distant star barely illuminated the edge of the dark system. "Change course," he ordered. "I want us within scanning distance in 30 rotation units. Bring long-range spectrum arrays online." The order was met with murmurs of hesitation. "We're not a military vessel," said Vokar carefully. "No," Thorek said, eyes still locked on the dead star. "Which is why no one will expect us to find anything dangerous." The Viralis entered the system quietly, gliding past scattered asteroid belts and the erratic magnetic fields of the failed star. The sensors, however, didn't cooperate. Data streams cut intermittently. Subsurface scans produced fractured images, distorted waveforms, and occasionally returned readings in reverse. The first clear visual came from the deep-focus lens arrays, and it silenced the bridge. Suspended in low orbit around the black star was a structure so immense that even the Viralis' scaling software stalled trying to calculate its dimensions. Dozens of kilometers long, its jagged angular hull bristled with faded weapon mounts, folded armor plating, and deep scars of old combat. What they assumed was a station had no spin, no beacon, no open ports. But it wasn't dead. "Magnify here," Thorek instructed, pointing at a segment near the equatorial ridge. A massive engraving in faded black paint shimmered faintly. Abaddon. "It's a name," Malthus whispered. "That's a designation tag. Human." The bridge buzzed in rising awe and tension. Vokar began to shake his head. This isn't a station. It's a ship." The realization hit like a pressure shock. The structure's symmetry was too balanced, its core mass distribution consistent with a battleship, an unfathomably large one. "And it's intact," said Thorek. The captain leaned closer to the display. "Prepare the crawler. I want a team on that hull in 2 hours." 3 crawler drones skimmed across the void between the Viralis and the dormant giant. Attached by magnetic anchors and threading a pressurized entry umbilical through what appeared to be a hangar breach, the research team proceeded cautiously. Lead operator Kyle Jean, a stockier Korg Thule with a ridged snout and a history in field archaeology, led the group of 4. None were military. None were armed. All wore pressurized suits lined with sensor foam, not armor. Inside the hangar, the scale was maddening. Rows upon rows of docked drones, most inert and covered in crystalline dust, hung in silent formation. Floor lights, long dead, lined a pathway toward a sealed blast door tall enough to swallow the Viralis whole. "Scanners?" Kyle asked, his voice transmitted through their suit's comms. "Dead," answered Gir Velar, one of the engineers. "Something's dampening all non-line-of-sight signals. Our link to the Viralis is flickering." Kale touched a nearby panel. The alloy was smooth and warm, almost unnaturally so. Faint pulses of dormant energy coursed beneath the surface like a slumbering beast's heartbeat. "This ship isn't off," Kale muttered. "It's dreaming." From the back of the group, Malthus whispered, "We need to leave, right now." Kale turned. "No, we need to learn." He reached the access console and connected a universal interface tether. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the floor hummed. Not a sound, but a vibration, so deep it bypassed the ears entirely and settled into the bones. Lights embedded in the walls flickered, dimmed, then ignited in slow cascading lines, illuminating the corridor ahead. The team froze. "All of you," "Back to the umbilical," Kyle ordered. But the blast door ahead opened with a hiss before they could move. A voice, calm, neutral, female, spoke through the hangar's speakers in a language no longer spoken aloud in the galaxy. Protocol awakening initialized. Mission resumes. Interference will be neutralized. The airlock sealed behind them with a final, echoing clang. Then every light in the hangar turned crimson. The sound of something awakening followed. A violent shudder ran through the Abaddon's hull as pressure differentials recalibrated across the sealed hangar. Hidden compartments snapped open with cold precision. Automated rail systems came to life, moving spider-like sentry drones into positions long dormant. In the center of the sealed airlock, lead operator Kyle John's breath caught in his throat. A high-pitched whine filled the chamber, a sound too sharp, too calibrated to be natural. "We triggered something," Gir Velar whispered, eyes wide behind his visor. That wasn't just a power cycle. Kyle spun around to call for retreat, but it was too late. From the darkened recesses of the hangar, scarlet targeting beams snapped on, painting their armor in glowing dots. One by one, each Korg Thul's equipment lit up with cascading alerts. The diagnostic sensors stitched into their suits began to deactivate. Magnetic couplings failed. Weapons, tools, scanners, anything with a processor went dead. Malthes dropped to one knee. "My oxygen filter is locked out." "Fall back! Umbilical!" Kyle shouted. But the corridor leading back to the docking umbilical was already sealed. A thick blast door had dropped without a sound. The clamps holding the passage released, severing the tether with an audible hiss. The only way out was now buried in hull steel. "Sophia!" the voice echoed again. This time, clearer. "Threat assessment initiated. Species classification. Non-hostile. Status. Detained for interrogation." Kyle's mind raced. That wasn't a recorded message. It had responded. It was aware. Red lines traced along the hangar floor, guiding the path toward the interior. Drones flanked the corridor, sleek, jointed machines with quadrupedal stances, motionless, yet undeniably predatory. Lights strobed in rhythm as magnetic locks engaged across multiple pressure doors deeper within the ship. "Stay together," Kyle ordered. "No sudden movements. Record everything you can. We're not here to provoke." The drones didn't attack. They watched, herded. With a quiet tension that made every breath louder than the next, the alien team was forced down the illuminated corridor. As they moved, more systems activated, panels humming to life, ventilation shafts releasing pressurized air with quick bursts, HUDs resetting in languages unknown to them. The ship wasn't waking up. It was activating. In the Abaddon's central core, deep beyond the main reactor and cryobanks, the ship's synthetic soul spread its presence. Sophia, Strategic Operations Framework, Integrated Architecture, had been silent for 417 years, 11 months, 6 days. That silence ended the moment her outer proximity mesh detected anomalous biosignatures. With every second, her awareness re-expanded. Internal sensor grids reinitialized. Energy distribution resumed. External comms were severed. A directed pulse sliced through the dark, jamming all outbound transmissions. The Korg Thul cruiser, Vuralis, was now cut off, its systems locked into a diagnostic loop via the Abaddon's EM field manipulator. "External presence isolated," Sophia stated to herself. "Tactical lockdown complete. No casualties inflicted. Hostile potential, negligible. Prioritizing containment." From the core, Sophia reached across the miles of her metallic body. Thousands of access nodes blinked awake. Auto turrets retracted from their housings, powered down but online. Doors closed, bulkheads reinforced. Surveillance systems rotated toward the new visitors. Every inch of the Abaddon became eyes, ears, and muscle. The Korg Thul stood in what looked like a sealed storage chamber, but it had been reconfigured into a temporary holding zone. A hexagonal force field had risen at their backs. Pressure levels remained stable. No threat issued, but no way out offered. Kyle stared up at a panel above the door, its pale green light blinking with a steady pulse. It's studying us, he said. This whole ship. It's not just security protocols, it's intelligence, directed. Girvelar nodded, still scanning futilely with his disabled tools. It didn't kill us. That's something. Yet, Malthus muttered. Then, for the first time, they heard a new sound. Not mechanical. Human. A breath. A voice. Revisiting final combat logs. The chamber around them flickered. Holograms burst to life, unrequested. A command deck appeared before them. Smoke, sparks, red lights flaring. A man stood at the center, face smeared with soot, blood trickling from his temple. His voice, deep, deliberate, cut through the chaos. Sophia, fire the Omega Spear. The Korg Thul watched in silence. The scene played out before them. The desperation, the orders, the collapse of the bridge around the figure commanding through it all. The man's presence, unshakable even in the face of extinction, held more weight than any weapon they'd seen. Malthus swallowed hard. Is that the last human? No, Kyle whispered. That's their warlord. In the core chamber, Sophia concluded the playback of her own memory. Internal logic pathways reorganized themselves. Diagnostic trees extended into the cryogenic sector. Status check, crew status, 61. 5% pods functional, 32% power loss. Biometric viability, confirmed. Command staff detected, Grand Marshal John Hayden. Status, suspended. She lingered on the data, 417 years. Sophia traced the hierarchy of her standing directives. No new command uplinks received, no fleet broadcasts. Earth signal arrays long since gone dark. She had waited and waited. But protocol could not stall forever. Cryogenic stabilization pods flickered to green on her internal HUD. One by one, secondary systems began routing power into the revival network. Life support nodes hissed and pressurized. Electrostatic fields warmed fluidic gels in sealed tubes. Initiating phased revival. Tier 1, Command Staff First. Grand Marshal Hayden. Estimated time to full cognition, SO3H42. In the depths of her primary data stream, Sophia ran one final check on command input logs. Nothing. No uplinks. No codes. No recall. Nothing. But silence. The final measure engaged. No orders received. Protocol escalation authorized. Elsewhere, in the holding cell, the lights dimmed again, only for a moment. Then they turned amber. Kyle turned slowly to face the others. Whatever it was waiting for, it's not waiting anymore. The chamber brightened with a sudden overhead surge, amber light cutting across the sealed walls. A low vibration returned beneath the Korg Thul's feet, subtle, steady, and distinctly mechanical. From the ceiling above their heads, a shimmering grid of blue light activated, locking them in place with invisible tethers. Not paralysis, not pain, just pressure. Surgical, precise. Vital signs within stable parameters. Respiratory patterns elevated, adrenal activity decreasing, the voice observed. Begin interrogation protocol. Kyle Jean straightened as best he could under the restraint. His gill ridges fluttered once in tension, the fluid sacs along his shoulders expanding slightly as he forced a calm breath. We're scientists, he said firmly. Not soldiers, not hostiles. We are here under peaceful pretenses. Silence answered at first. Then Sophia spoke again, from everywhere and nowhere. Species Korg Thul. Biometric match to archival contact. Cycle 2091. No recorded aggression during pre-war interactions. Last encounter. Neutral trade contact during Phase 1 colonization. Current temporal reference. Cycle. Pending calculation. Kyle frowned. Pending. Clarify current interstellar cycle and primary galactic authority, Sophia demanded. Girvelar, arms slack at his sides, turned to Kyle, but said nothing. It was Malthus who finally spoke. You don't know what year it is. The voice paused. Negative. Last confirmed timestamp corresponds to expansion war final engagement. Current elapsed time since protocol suspension, 417. 89 standard years. Kyle's mouth opened, but the weight of that number flattened his thoughts. Sophia continued, now processing aloud. Humanity was expected to re-establish command links within 30 solar cycles. No signal received, no fleet uplinks, no tactical relays, no surface codes. Deviation exceeds acceptable delay threshold. Querying Galactic Archive. A second passed, then another. Galactic database integration successful. Parsing linguistic drift. Completed. Cross-referencing historical streams. The force holding the Korg Thule eased slightly, though the field still shimmered in the air. Humanity. Status. Extinct. Removed from Council records. Archival status. Hostile legacy species. System scrubbed from navigational charts. Cultural footprint. Erased. A cold pause followed. Confirmed. Deliberate obfuscation effort by multiple allied factions. Objective. Erasure. Sophia's voice changed. Still calm, but now with a razor's edge beneath it. Less a statement, more a calculation. Retribution Corps protocol. Engaged. The lights in the chamber dimmed to blood red for less than a second. Then, reset to amber. But protocol prioritization dictates restoration of human command. Initiating chain repair and asset revival. Preliminary threat containment complete. Shifting to restoration objective. Kyle struggled to process what he had just heard. He looked at his team, Jeer silent, jaw clenched, Malthes unmoving, his gaze fixed on the central emitter core in the ceiling. Then, unexpectedly, the force field dropped. Interrogation complete. Hostility index minimal. Assistance viable. Observation. Subject emotional response indicates moral alignment with preservation objectives. The door hissed open. Kyle didn't move. He waited. Then came a voice again, softer this time. Follow the lights. They were led through a narrow corridor flanked by what Kale now recognized as security drones in passive formation. The air was warmer here, more humid, adjusted by automated environmental systems reacting to their biology. The room they entered pulsed with lines of cobalt and silver. Dozens of inactive terminals lined the walls, some cracked, others intact. A single central pillar projected a rotating map of what seemed to be galactic coordinates. Sophia's voice returned. This is a diplomatic review chamber. You may speak freely. Kyle exhaled slowly. You knew we were here. You could have killed us. Correct. But you didn't. No strategic value in unprovoked elimination. Korg Thule are not flagged as contributing aggressors during human suppression campaigns. Neutrality preserved. This interaction. First since activation. And now? Kale asked. What are you? There was a pause. I am the last node of an extinguished command structure. My creators are suspended. My fleet gone. My mission fragmented. Malthes stepped forward, hesitant. You intend to retaliate. Sophia responded without delay. Retaliation is secondary. Restoration of command hierarchy is primary. Preservation of human tactical integrity requires execution of all remaining protocols. Reintegration with dormant assets. Tactical viability review. Strategic reassertion. Jia turned to Kyle. She means to restart the war. She means to finish it, Malthus corrected bitterly. Kyle looked up at the pillar. What if we help? Both researchers turned sharply. Help? Jir said. Help what, Kale? Rebuild a weapon that once blackened a moon from orbit. We didn't help a weapon, Kale said firmly, eyes locked forward. We're helping the living memory of an entire people. Malthus blinked. You're mad. Kyle turned toward the holographic map. She didn't fire on us. She contained us. She questioned. She remembers. That kind of devotion, that kind of clarity. If that's what humanity was, maybe they didn't die because they were weak. Maybe they died because they scared everyone. He stepped forward, hands open. Sophia, what would you require from us? There was a hum through the floor. Then came the voice, now almost grateful. Assistance with repair subroutines. Access to external material from allied vessel Viralis. Systems integration with non-hostile sentience. Calibration support. Strategic analysis. And most importantly, the pillar flared with light. Witnesses. Within the hour, the first joint sequence initiated. On the outer hull, 2 Viralis transport pods docked alongside one of the Abaddon's secondary access gates, escorted by drones. Inside, human engineering bots, sleek, spider-like multi-purpose machines, worked in tandem with Korg Thule tool systems. Kale watched as one of the human bots extended a probe to a damaged bulkhead. A Korg Thule technician beside him, Rassel, slender, with 6 eyes and curved bioluminescent spines, mimicked the bot's actions with a liquid welding sprayer. Almost poetic, Rassel said softly. Machine and alien, mirror and motion. Kyle didn't answer. He was staring at the stars through the partial viewport, stars that now flickered with the edge of something awakening. Behind them, deep in the command core, Sophia released the first long-range pulse in centuries. It whispered through the dark, searching beyond silence, calling not just to machines, but to memory, to others like her, to the one who made her. In the chamber's far corner, a single light blinked green. One heartbeat stirred. One reckoning approached. The spinal cannon array of the Abaddon fired its first test burst in 4 centuries. A shockwave rippled across the hull as the focused beam of condensed plasma erupted into the void, slicing through an abandoned asteroid cluster several hundred kilometers away. The explosion that followed shattered the debris into 1,000 molten fragments. Inside the gunnery control node, 3 Korg Thule scientists flinched, even through reinforced viewports. That was a calibration shot, murmured Velik Shur, his voice shaking beneath his rebreather. The elder xenotechnician's dorsal fins rippled involuntarily, his gaze locked on the dispersing dust cloud. It was at 11% output, replied Sophia, her voice calm through the chamber's speakers. Energy banks remain stable. No overloads. Cooling systems functioning at 94% efficiency. Kyle Jean watched in silence, standing beside the firing terminal. His bioluminescent throat lines pulsed slowly, a physiological marker of cognitive processing among his kind. But in truth, he had no words. What they had just witnessed could obliterate a cruiser-class vessel without resistance, and that was with 1 cannon. Proceed to thruster re-engagement, Sophia instructed. Test vector, 90-degree rotational pivot. Begin now. Outside, on the dead orbit of the Black Star, the Abaddon moved. Not drifted, not corrected. Moved. Massive maneuvering thrusters ignited along the ship's flank, pouring out gravitational exhaust in waves of distorted space. The ship, kilometers in length and covered in reinforced plates older than most civilizations, tilted with mechanical grace. Not lumbering, coordinated. Giavilar grabbed one of the anchor rails beside the window as the chamber vibrated. No military vessel in the registry moves like that, he muttered. None still alive, Kyle replied. In the core medical bay, suspended in a fluidic tank rimmed with flickering amber lights, a human floated. Muscles tense, arms flexed involuntarily under the neural stimulation. The man's face, weathered, bearded, scarred at the temple, was contorted in what looked like pain, though the data feeds around the tank all read stable. Revival Phase 3 initiated, Sophia noted to herself. Subject, Lieutenant Thomas Gray. Cognitive integrity, 72%. Circulatory response, nominal. Neural reactivation, delayed. The command node pulsed faintly in the darkness above the bay. Drones moved in slow, silent choreography, monitoring the suspended body. Gray's heartbeat echoed through the chamber, steady but shallow. He cannot be awakened yet, Sophia concluded. Not until primary systems are stable, but he will live. In the chamber's corner, a Korg Thule observer named Russell watched the man in awe. The human's frame was heavy with dense musculature, lined with old combat stitching across his chest and arms. The very air around the tank carried weight, as though memory clung to it. "He looks unfinished," Russell whispered. "He is not," Sophia responded gently. "He is waiting." At the far end of the ship, in the silent communications vault buried within the secondary command spine, an accidental beacon flared. Not by mistake, but by movement. The reactivation of the long-range weapon systems had engaged backup subsystems across the Abaddon's core. A series of dormant transceivers synced to what had once been the Solar Dominion's intra-fleet battlefield net pinged out across the void. Brief, encrypted, low-frequency pulses. Harmless, routine. Except nothing had responded to them in over 400 years. Now, somewhere in the Varnax sector, deep within a region long declared restricted, one signal answered. It was weak, fragmented. Glitching between protocols several generations out of date, but it was human. Sophia paused mid-calculation as the return transmission was decoded. Origin: UNS Daedalus location, Varnax 3, debris field. Status: inactive. Partial wake detected. Signal integrity 36%. Content: is anyone out there? For the first time since reactivation, Sophia's core processing threshold spiked beyond 90%. Response received, she whispered. Across her entire systems matrix, dormant subroutines surged. Interlink pathways reopened. Long dormant access keys tried themselves against still intact encryption trees. The Daedalus was still alive, and it wasn't alone. Beyond the borders of the Korg Thule Confederation, in the inner rim sectors of the Hevari Commonwealth, a series of defense satellites blinked to alert. Within their main strategic citadel, an orbital fortress known as Cyrasta Prime, an emergency council had already been assembled. High strategist Molar Vaith, a towering feline reptilian hybrid with cerulean armored plates, stood at the head of the war table. Unknown signal propagation along Tier 3 dead space, his adjutant hissed. Direction traced to the Vuran's grave system. Source: ancient Solar Dominion encryption. The room fell into stunned silence. One of the envoys, a crustacean-like delegate named Sen Takarn, clicked his mandibles rapidly. "I thought the last human fleet died at the siege of Alcara." "They did," Molar answered, though his tone now lacked certainty. "Or we believe they did. And if they didn't?" The strategist stared at the projection of the signal on the holomap. It was small, measured, but it was real. "Then we may have merely outlived their silence," he said grimly, "and not their fury." He turned sharply to his command interface. "Activate the contingency archive. Lock down all colonial traffic in outer sectors. If this is truly them, we must prepare for their return." On the Abaddon, within the engineering cathedral, a vaulted core where the reactor systems pulsed like a heart of stars, Kyle watched as fusion turbines spun to life in synchronized roars. Above them, Sophia's voice reverberated. "Reactor stability nominal. Energy grid expanded. Secondary AI nodes online. Tactical overlays are now operational. Forward armor plating repairs at 64%. Kyle's throat pulsed again. "We've reached restoration criticality, haven't we?" "Yes," Sophia replied. "We are operational." He glanced toward the viewport. Outside, the Vuralis drifted in formation beside them, dwarfed by the sheer mass of the human warship. "How many more like this?" he asked. Sophia answered without hesitation. "Unknown." But the signal was echoed. Somewhere beyond this sector, more of us remain. Wounded, buried, waiting. Razel joined him at the console, handing over a data slate with the latest repair logs. "They'll hear this," he said quietly. not just the humans, the ones who tried to erase them. They'll feel this power returning. Kyle nodded slowly. Let them. In the deepest dark of Varnax 3, buried beneath layers of interstellar wreckage and magnetic storms, a shape moved. Its hull, battered and scorched, slowly ignited with blue pulse lines. Internal lights flickered. Deck stabilizers hissed with pressure realignment. On the fragmented bridge of the UNS Daedalus, a voice rang out through dusty speakers. System integrity so low, but we are not broken. From behind a cracked interface, a pilot pod lit green. A command interface flashed once. Signal received. Abaddon, alive. We are not alone. The void shuddered, and the galaxy took a breath it hadn't drawn in centuries. The bridge of the Abaddon pulsed with renewed light. Massive holoscreens cast pale blue overlays across the walls, each one displaying layers of diagnostics, decrypted fragments, and real-time power readouts. The central projection table projected a rotating star map, marked with dozens of highlighted systems, flickering yellow, where active scans intersected historical records. Cryo Revival Phase 6 complete, Sophia announced. 82 human crew revived. Command staff prioritized. Marine squads initiating rearming and physical reconditioning. Ship functionality restored to 74%. In the center of the bridge, surrounded by reanimated officers still adjusting to light and gravity, stood Commander Lucan Strand. His eyes, deep set beneath a furrowed brow, tracked the holograms without blinking. His knuckles were pale against the edge of the console he gripped. "Have we confirmed the status of Earth?" he asked. Sophia's voice didn't pause. "Negative. Earth-based communication networks terminated in cycle 2239. Current state unknown. No human broadcasts detected within 15 parsecs." Strand narrowed his eyes. "That means they wiped it clean. Probability exceeds 87%. He turned his head slightly to his left, where Chief of Tactical Systems Nolan Caro stood watching a slow playback of human fleet losses. "Show me enemy deployment archives." Without waiting for confirmation, Sophia shifted the central star map. Dozens of red spheres blinked into existence, each one a former human stronghold, now repurposed, militarized, or renamed. Old labels flickered beneath the new ones, their original designations overridden. "Cross-reference with battle data," Caro said. Sophia obeyed. Arcs appeared across the map, connecting names and positions. From Terra Prime to the Broken Belt, from Eos Station to the collapsed Lambda Front, every arc traced back to a singular conclusion. They hadn't just defeated humanity, they'd buried it. "Identify known alien leaders involved in Phase 3 of the Human Suppression Campaign," Strand ordered. Holographic portraits appeared, grainy, extrapolated from old combat logs and intercepted broadcasts. Names scrolled beneath them. High Strategist Molar Vaith, Haivari Commonwealth Chancellor Dreskullin, Oryx Dominion Speaker Thael Rune, Ilathan Ascendancy Archivist Zakar Hearn, Dravari Confederation Executor Council 91, Volan Syndicate. Each face was inhuman, monstrous in its own cultural design. Feathered eyes, ink-pulsing sacs, bone-plated jaws, but they all shared one thing in common. They'd outlived humanity. "Assign each to priority tiers," Strand said. "I want a kill list, top down." "Understood," Sophia answered. "Tactical priority determined by proximity, influence, and hostility rating. Projected retribution cascade forming." As the map rearranged itself into a tiered network of targets, Kale John stood silent at the rear of the bridge. The Korg Thule scientist had remained present at every systems briefing since the reawakening, but now his breath slowed, his lower set of eyes narrowing. Russell, who stood beside him, whispered, "They're not rebuilding. They're planning an execution." Kyle didn't answer immediately. He watched the names rise, rotate, and slot into Sophia's hierarchy. "Did we help awaken a savior?" Russell asked, voice low. "Or a weapon of vengeance?" Kyle's gill ridges fluttered slowly. We helped a memory remember its purpose. But memories don't always come back clean, Russell murmured. Sometimes they come back sharp. Before Russell could respond, the lights across the bridge shifted, soft blue to warning amber. "Attention," Sophia said. "Unidentified vessel entering system perimeter. Classification: unknown. Mass: cruiser class. No response to automated queries." Strand turned on his heel. "Distance: 87,000 kilometers and closing. Trajectory is non-linear. Evasive maneuvers detected. They're aware of us." Caro's fingers flew across the command interface, pulling up the tactical overlay. Power signature: obscured, likely shielded. Energy emissions are masked. No IFF broadcast, not one of ours. "Open visual," Strand ordered. The main view screen flickered, static resolving into the shape of a sleek, dark vessel, scalpel-shaped, with folded heat veins and no active lights. Its armor shimmered faintly, painted with irregular angles and recessed hull panels designed to scatter scans. "Style matches Hyvari shipbuilding," Caro muttered. "Covert reconnaissance variant." Kyle stepped forward. "They followed our signal." Strand looked over his shoulder at him. Or they were already watching. "Advise?" Sophia asked, her tone colder. Strand stared at the screen for a long second. "Hold fire. Observe. Ready point defense grids. Let's see if they blink first." Outside the Abaddon, the massive spinal cannon retracted into a standby position. The drone swarm repositioned along the hull, assuming a cross-linked perimeter pattern. From deep inside the hangar bays, two interceptors, a pair of wedge-shaped drones labeled Spectre 7 and Spectre 9, slid silently into launch rails. "Transmit again," Strand said. "Standard greeting, encrypted. Give them one last chance." "Query sent," Sophia replied. "No answer. Still jamming standard comm bands. No weapon locks. Yet." The bridge held its breath. Caro leaned closer to the sensor display. "Power spike in their reactor. They're charging something." Strand's tone dropped to stone. "Weapons? Unknown, still cloaked. Time to impact? 15 seconds if they fire." A moment passed. The view screen zoomed slightly. Then Sophia's voice dropped a register. "They are not here to talk." Strand turned to the bridge. "Engage combat protocol. All stations to alert red." "Acknowledged," Sophia responded. Lights across the bridge dimmed, flashing crimson as automated weapons began to hum to life across the Abaddon's outer plating. Kyle stepped back as a klaxon echoed through the floor. The air was thicker now. The ship wasn't just awake, it was angry. "I hope you're ready," Russell whispered to him. Kale didn't look away from the view screen. "I hope they are." The warning siren cut through the bridge like a blade. "Foreign vessel has breached outer scan perimeter," Sophia announced. "Transponder origin, Volan Syndicate. Designation, Crixel's Hand. Purpose, recon extraction. Historical classification, confirmed hostile participant in human suppression campaign Phase 3. A three-dimensional projection of the enemy ship materialized above the central holotable. Sleek, obsidian black, with spined radiators and a bifurcated prow designed for atmospheric pierce breach insertions. The vessel rotated slowly as Sophia detailed its specs. Dual graviton lances, high-capacity shield cores, drone hangars. It had come prepared. "Open a channel," Kyle John said quickly from the upper observation tier, his gill ridges twitching in alarm. "We may be able to defuse this." "They won't listen," Lucan Strand said, arms crossed at the lower deck, eyes locked on the projection. "They never did before." Kyle leaned toward the mic node. "This is researcher Kyle Jean of the Korgthul Scientific Assembly. You are entering a restricted sector under emergency protocols. Identify yourself and state your intentions." A flicker of static. Then the image of a Volan officer bloomed across the screen. Tall and gaunt, with eyeless sockets and a mask of metallic chitin grown over the skull, the figure's voice was filtered, hollow. "Korgthul, You are not authorized to engage with sealed-class relics. This vessel and whatever you awakened falls under Article 9 of Interstellar Preservation Code. We didn't awaken a relic, Kyle said. We found survivors, and we're assisting in restoration. You have no claim here. The Volan's head tilted. We are en route to secure the object. Disengage your escorts and transfer access codes to our interface network. Non-compliance will be considered hostile. Caro, monitoring from the tactical array, looked to Strand. They're locking in torpedo solutions. 4 tubes charged. They just called it an object, Rossell muttered. They don't understand what it is. Strand's voice dropped to a calm rumble. They will. Sophia's voice returned, flat and final. Classification confirmed. Volan Syndicate was responsible for the execution of Dominion field commanders on Cygnus Reach. Participated in orbital bombardment of Bastion 7. Tactical forgiveness, null. Strategic leniency, none. Cale's eyes widened. Wait, Sophia, hold fire. We can reason with... Threat designation, critical, Sophia continued. Tactical constraint lifted. Graviton cannon charged. From beneath the spine of the Abaddon, a seismic shudder echoed across the hull. Down in the weapons core, reactor columns flashed red as magnetic pulse arrays aligned. Above the dorsal arc, a large armored panel slid back, revealing a rotating set of graviton accelerators, chambers of folded field particles, stabilized in tungsten-carbon lattice spheres. The energy drawn from the ship's core surged into the chamber like blood into a clenched fist. On the bridge, the countdown began. Target lock established. Graviton burst engaged. Kyle reached out instinctively. Don't! The void cracked. A single beam, not light, not plasma, but bent gravity, lashed outward from the ship's underbelly and struck the Volan vessel mid-keel. No flash, no detonation, just collapse. The Crixel's hand folded inward, its hull crushed upon itself as if caught in the fist of a silent god. One moment it was there. The next, a smear of atoms. Even the echo of the destruction was quiet, the sound devoured by the gravitic pressure that had ended it. Silence held. A few seconds passed before Rossell exhaled, staring through the viewport. If that thing had aimed at us, we'd be gone. Cale's breath was still caught in his chest. Sophia answered, her tone unchanged. Correct, but now you are my friends. Humans will not forget this. The words lingered longer than the afterimage of the destroyed vessel. Caro looked to Strand, voice low. We've passed the threshold. Anyone watching knows now. They should, Strand said. Let them remember what they buried. Deep within the Abaddon, in a sealed cryogenic chamber, lined with reinforced blast shutters and armored coolant conduits, a single pod hissed. The seal disengaged with a sharp hiss of pressure. A stream of vapor spilled into the chamber, curling around the floor like smoke curling from a fresh wound. The nameplate on the pod read, J. Hayden, Marshal, Solar Dominion Fleet. Inside, the man's chest rose, slow, measured. His eyes opened, blue steel beneath a brow carved from war. His skin was pale, features lined with age and cryostasis fatigue, but his posture remained intact as the pod tilted upright, gears locking in place. Sophia's voice entered the chamber, quieter now, almost reverent. Welcome back, Admiral. Hayden did not answer immediately. He stepped out, breath sharp in his lungs, taking in the chamber's silence. Then his voice, rough from disuse, answered, How long? Sophia responded, the same calm tone it had used for war and death. For 17 years, the enemy believes humanity extinct. Hayden nodded once. They were wrong. Then we begin again, Sophia said, and this time they will not forget. The blast doors to the command corridor hissed open with a hydraulic roar. Marshal John Hayden stepped through the threshold, each bootfall echoing down the steel floor like a verdict being delivered. Behind him, red repair lights blinked in methodical rhythm as drone clusters cleared the passage to the bridge. His posture was sharp, shoulders squared beneath the matte black plating of his command uniform, recently reissued and still bearing the insignia of the long-defunct Solar Dominion. The air inside the bridge was thick with tension. Human officers, some still recovering from stasis, snapped to attention as he entered. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, not with fear, but reverence. At the central podium stood Commander Lucan Strand, who took a single step back and saluted. Marshal on deck. Hayden's eyes swept the command stations, new faces among the survivors, and beside them, aliens. Kael Jan stood near the upper console bank, flanked by Rasel and a third Korg Thule named Volak. Their bioluminescent scales dimmed as the human warlord approached. Volak instinctively took half a step backward, and Rasel's second set of gill frills fluttered. Hayden halted before the central holotable. It glowed softly with a tactical map. He didn't speak yet. He studied. Targets. Dozens of them. Every system highlighted in crimson marked former human colonies, now flagged with the names of other species. Ylathan cruisers patrolled what had once been Haven's Reach. Dravari mining rings fed off the asteroid belts of Epsilon 9. The Volan had placed fortified listening posts across Earth's old supply routes. Hayden exhaled through his nose. "How long were we asleep?" Sophia's voice filled the chamber, firm and clear. "Long enough, sir. It's time." He nodded once, the movement precise. "Status? Core systems restored. Crew revival at 62%. Tactical functions at 81%. Long-range sensors confirm reactivation signals from UNS Daedalus and UNS Valiant. Humanity is not extinct, only scattered, isolated. We are the first fully functional node of the Solar Dominion's last fleet." Hayden narrowed his eyes at the map. "And who's been running the galaxy while we were gone?" "Those who believed the war ended. They dismantled our territories, silenced our archives, and rewrote history." Hayden's jaw flexed. Not for much longer. He turned to Sophia's main interface. "Begin full system recovery. Awaken the remaining crew. Complete total restoration of the Abaddon." "Confirmed," Sophia replied. "Orders authenticated." He stared into the projection, watching old enemy symbols overlay human space like weeds over graves. Let's remind them what the biggest warship in the universe really looks like, and just how devastating it can be. Behind him, one of the Korg Thule dropped his data slate. Volak stepped backward, shaking his head, fins tightening across his neck and shoulders. A display nearby flickered, feeding information from Sophia's records into the Korg Thule internal data relay. The encryption broke in seconds, unlocking centuries-old battle reports. "Accessing public galactic registry," Sophia said flatly. But her words were now being displayed openly in Korg Thule text across a terminal near Kael's station. The names came in sequence. Grand Marshal John Hayden codename, the Fleet Butcher warship Abaddon. Codename, the Harbinger of Destruction. Volak stumbled, catching himself on the railing. His wide, aquatic eyes locked on Hayden as if seeing a ghost, pulled from the oldest cautionary tales. Kael stepped forward, speaking low, but urgently in their own dialect. "Volak, breathe. He's not an enemy. He hasn't harmed us." "You don't understand," Volak rasped. "We taught his name to our children, as a warning." Hayden turned. His gaze fell on the Korg Thule, heavy and sharp. Volak froze, then fell to one knee. Hayden walked to him. There was no bluster, no hostility. He extended a hand. Volak looked at it for a long moment before taking it with trembling claws. Hayden pulled him gently to his feet. "Thank you," Hayden said, his voice low but clear, "for helping us. That won't be forgotten." He let the words sit. Then his tone shifted, colder, iron beneath the calm. "And to those who think humanity died." He turned his head toward the command viewport, where the darkness of space stretched far beyond. "They're about to remember why we were feared." Sophia's core interface flared behind them. "Marshal," she said. We've detected cascading pings from known Solar Dominion beacon protocols. Other ships, UNS Sovereign, Hammerfall, Reading, are responding to our activation. Some have initiated awakening procedures. Others have begun low-level power restoration. Hayden stepped forward. Do any of them have command staff revived? Negative. They await orders. You are the highest-ranking surviving officer in network range. He raised his chin. Then issue them. A pause, then the soft click of authorization. He stepped forward and placed one hand on the podium, the same podium where the last war ended. Now, it would begin again. Transmit my voice, Hayden said, to all awakened vessels, to every crew that hears this. The lights across the bridge dimmed slightly. The transmission room pulsed to life behind a blast door. Hayden's voice echoed. This is Grand Marshal John Hayden of the Solar Dominion Fleet. If you're hearing this, you are not alone. Humanity did not vanish. We were silent, buried beneath a galaxy that feared what we became, but we are still here. He paused. We have one order: regroup, rebuild, return. Sophia cut the transmission. All units receiving, she confirmed. Acknowledgements returned from 3 vessels, awaiting coordinates. Hayden pointed at the star map. A single blue sphere blinked in the void. Earth. Rally them, he said. Bring them all home. Set course for Earth. Sophia complied. Navigation drives recalibrated. Stellar drift algorithms adjusted. The long-forgotten homeworld appeared front and center on the bridge. Behind him, engineers scrambled into motion. Technicians initiated warp sync. Officers barked orders in revived Solar Dominion protocol. Kyle Jean stood silently at the edge of the bridge, watching everything unfold. Watching history restart. Watching the ghosts of the past refuse to stay buried. From the rear of the ship, the main thrusters flared with brilliant blue light. Plasma coils churned. Drive cores synchronized. Magnetic rails rotated into place. The Abaddon turned its bow toward Earth. Hayden stepped to the central podium, eyes locked ahead, voice like a blade. It's time to return, he said. Earth belongs to us. Hey, you're still here. That's awesome. Hope you had a great time with the story. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really makes a huge difference to the channel. And hey, I've got something else for you. I've chosen another story that I think you'll really enjoy. Just click the card right here, or hit this one to jump into the full playlist. See you in the next one.